Food. A substance that every living being must consume to survive. Whether that be a juicy, delectable slab of meat or a plain old vegetable, we all have to eat some on a daily basis to make it true life. But what if there was more to the very food you eat? What if the steak you were eating wasn't that from a cow, but a red dragon, or a carrot not growing in the ground, but from a golem? Enter Delicious in Dungeon, or Dungeon Meshi, depending on your preference. A magical show about a group of adventurers who must traverse a treacherous dungeon in order to save their lost comrade from the clutches of a dragon, as well as make friends along the way, in this super wholesome show where nothing bad ever happens to our lovable protagonists. Not once ever. Nope. Spoilers for Delicious in Dungeon Season 1, by the way. From the very beginning, Delicious in Dungeon trusts us headfirst into this rich, vibrant world by establishing both the A-plot of saving Laios' innocent sister Falin from being digested by the Red Dragon, and the B-plot surrounding the mystery of the ancient Golden Country in which the dungeon once resided in. Despite the party immediately disbanding after getting folded by the Red Dragon, our three core party members, Laios, Marcille, and Chilchuck, press on to save their captured comrade, which leads them to encountering Senshi, the resident chef of the group, who has survived in the dungeon for the past decade, feeding off the local monsters and produce festering within the dungeon's depths. Quite possibly the highest regarding of this series, outside of its character writing, is the very subtle world building as the party ventures deeper into the dark underbelly of the dungeon, such as the racial inequality between long-lived and short-lived races, as we find out from Marcel's admittedly racist debate when the party is captured by the orcs. While this scene is sort of brushed off by Senshi's honestly impeccable comedic timing,
Put your fingers in there and work that dough!
it establishes a theme that will persist later into the series. Not to delve into manga spoilers all too much, it's going to sting like a motherfucker towards the end of the series. Getting back on track, this inequality is heavily supported by the elves, which we see through small chunks of season 1, as the Canaries essentially treat the island lord and Mr. Tanzu as children due to their race's short lifespan, again showing the superiority complex the elves have over other races. I got a bit too real. Lighten the mood a bit. Look, it's beautifully drawn food. Dungeon food. Like the name of the show. At least in Japan. Okay, I know Twitter blue checkmarks like to report that, wow, I can't believe anime food looks so good when rent is due, but damn, I would be mistaken if I didn't mention how good the food looks in the show, which helps to really sell the idea that these characters, or at least Senshi, really care about what goes into meal prepping by audibly going through the step-by-step guide in cooking dungeon food. And a nice touch that I can appreciate in the manga is a little tidbit that tells the reader what ingredients go into each and every meal, including measurements. While we've jumped around the topic a lot in this video, let's talk about the characters, because their bond is easily one of the strongest aspects of Dungeon Meshi. Yes, I know I've said that a lot, but I really can't sing the show's praises enough when it comes to character writing. Starting with the main, he's literally meme man himself, Laios, the group's walking bestiary due to his extensive knowledge of monsters, which can be a little suspicious at times. Why do you look at the Minotaur like that? When it comes down to it, Laios' special interest allows him to lock in and combat most situations thrown his way, such as flashing back during the living armor fight, and Jesus Christ, why'd they go so hard for this scene? I mean, I'm not complaining because holy peak, just look at this. While at times his interest in monsters is definitely a detriment, such as eating a literal parasite and just casually pulling up to the main villain's domain on accident, it makes up for it through again his tactile knowledge of the monsters which infest the dungeon as a result of living a fairly excluded childhood, due to his difficulty in reading the room, as we find out when Shuro gives Laios an insanely harsh reality check, as he was only nice to Laios due to societal customs from his home country. We also find out Laios is a weeb, so another point to Ryan Gosling counter. Where his true character lies is in his guilt of being unable to save Falin from the Red Dragon, as well as leaving her to grow up alone in his pursuit of joining the army as a soldier, which he inevitably abandoned in pursuit of dungeon diving alongside Falin, as well as later both Chilchuck and Marcille. Speaking of which, Marcille is almost the exact opposite of Laios, being scared of monsters rather than devouring them without a second thought. Although this anti-monster stance is slowly eroded as their adventure inside the dungeon continues, even growing affection for a monster, ignore the fact she created it. Like Laios, Marcille's true nature is hidden until a crucial point in season 1. For Laios, it was witnessing what Falin had become under Sis's madness, while Marcille's struggle comes within, as her true deepest fear is that of outliving the people around her. And just like Laios, Marcille too shares some of the guilt for allowing Falin to get eaten, which in a roundabout way makes her the gojo of the group. She's also the comedic relief of the group, like she fails a lot. However, Marcille's character arc comes in the form of opening up to new experiences alongside the rest of the party on their chaotic quest throughout the dungeon, which we obviously see Senshi through her trying Senshi's monster meals, and even the little things like teaching Laios how to use magic or looking out for Izutsumi, who is essentially the kid of the group, which on first glance you wouldn't think because of Chilchuck, who despite his appearance is actually a grown-ass man with a wife and kids, although it does fit with his cowardly and angsty personality as he learns to loosen up, much like Marcille to some extent. Because let's be real, Chilchuck without a little bit of angst would be like if Laios learned not to care about monsters, or if Senshi gave up on cooking. He just wouldn't be the same. Instead of being another fighter, Chilchuck is more of a tactician, kind of, as he disarms the many well-hidden traps within the treacherous dungeon depths. However, as we later find out through Marcille becoming a half-foot, Chilchuck doesn't engage in combat due to his short stature in comparison to the rest of the party. In fact, we only really see Chilchuck fight like once in the entirety of season 1 against the ice golem, and even then, he's more so just assisting Izutsumi in fighting the golem's core. Upon getting soloed by Thistle and almost getting killed by the other team of orcs, Chilchuck learns that sometimes it's okay to not be on the grind, as he realizes after multiple near-death experiences and some stern glares from Lead that perhaps the others aren't so bad after all, giving him the necessary courage to press on deeper into the dungeon alongside the other party members to save the now chimeric Falin. While Chilchuck may have had undecided feelings about leaving the party, there's one party member who can only be described as the foundation, the cement of the party, Senshi. Without him, we simply wouldn't have the delicious in dungeon. He is the one who cooks, and by God, can he cook. Aside from Senshi being the party's lifeline, because let's be real, without him, they would have starved, he's essentially the parent of the group, making sure everyone gets enough food to make it through the day. A key theme that persists with like every major character in this series is hiding a much deeper backstory, which we eventually learn after a hearty meal in the dungeon, as he opens up about his first venture into the dungeon long before he met the others. Ignore the fact he looks like Steven Universe. We learn that Senshi's original party was lured into the dungeon almost as if by a captivated force preying on their desires of obtaining gold, which unsurprisingly goes horribly wrong, as a hippogriff confines them to a small room within the lower levels of the dungeon. Even believing that he had unknowingly committed cannibalism to survive, which didn't turn out to be the case, in one of the best scenes of season 1. When it comes to monster knowledge, he comes second only to Laios for obvious reasons. Whereas Laios' speciality is with monster biology overall, Senshi hones in on the nutritional value of each monster, knowing the perfect way to cook and prepare almost any and every monster slain in the dungeon. So on the topic of monsters,
my real name's Izutsumi, and don't forget it.
Alright Naruto. Izutsumi, while being the child of the group, not knowing proper table manners and thinking of no one other than herself, slowly, and I do mean very slowly, learns to care for others. Although due to her very late introduction to the party, appearing at the story's literal halfway point, the majority of her character arc has yet to be adapted in the anime. I have to say though, it's really refreshing to have a cat girl act like an actual cat, which is due to her soul being fused with a cat, making Izutsumi a beastman, as well as linking to her seemingly traumatizing backstory, which hasn't been covered by the anime yet, so let's swiftly move on. The cat half of Izutsumi goes much deeper than just aesthetics, as it could be interpreted that in some regard, Izutsumi is akin to a stray cat, going from party to party, and presumably the hopes of finding one to permanently stay with, which she finds within the comfort of our ragtag group of adventurers, compared to the refined high-living Ashura's party in the east, in which Izutsumi was taken in by, doing small odd jobs like shoveling snow, and of course protecting Mr. Nobleman himself. Plus, her agile, almost acrobatic-like fighting style makes for a nice change of pace from the traditional fighting styles that the rest of the party dishes out. Alright, this video is too cheery now. Gotta get depressing again. The most tragic character in this series, without a shadow of a doubt, has to be Falin. Putting her loved ones before her own life, and even after her monstrous chimera transformation, still looks out for the relentless mad mage, Thistle, or Sissel, again depending on preference, as she still shows some compassion in this new form, despite how she brutally killed both Kaboru and Shura's parties midway through the season. Like, Jesus, some of these deaths are pretty crazy. It's this new beastly form which not only transforms Falin herself, but the series as a whole, with the tone of dungeon meshi getting progressively darker, as the overarching plot advances forward alongside the party's descent into the perilous final floors of the decrepit dungeon, where their journey to save Falin progressively gets more difficult, with each monster they face along the way. As through the tram ride in the ancient dwarven city, Laios comes to the realization that Falin may actually be slowly starving due to her human upper half being unsustainable for her lower dragon half, which now makes their journey a race against time once more, like in the very beginning of the series. Alright, before we go any further, this next part has some minor manga spoilers for season 2 content, so if you want to avoid that kind of stuff, skip to this timestamp on screen like right now. Alright, we should also briefly talk about the side characters because oh man is there a lot. From the regulars like Kabu and Namari to the every so often appearances like Kabu's entire party. These guys just kind of get phased out of the series after a while, which like, I'm not really complaining because Mifrun and Kabu's buddy cop adventure is a pretty goated mini arc. Hopefully the anime expands that on a little more since these two work surprisingly well as a duo. I feel like though it would have been nice to have seen Shuro or Namari's parties a bit more often since we don't get a whole lot of lore for them, but maybe I'm just missing out on some extra content since at the time of recording this video I haven't actually finished the manga or read the Adventurer's Bible yet, so I'm holding out on hope that they get some extra time in the spotlight there. As a whole though, the show handles the side characters surprisingly well. Like there's a bunch of glip shows in here, like the two adventurers from episode 2, or the group of orcs in episodes 4 and 13, who you'd never expect to see again, but color me surprised since they do in fact reappear when the going gets real tough. MVPs for real. That entire scene is really great. You know, I'll be dead honest, Delicious in Dungeon is easily a top 3 show of all time. From the masterful character writing to the incredibly detailed yet subtle world building, all the ingredients come together to create quite possibly the best 5-course meal imaginable. While this video was just an overview of season 1 and sides of manga content, you can already bet I'm hopping on the Dungeon Meshi video bandwagon because my god, there's just so much to talk about this delectable piece of media that I hope continues to prosper even after the anime inevitably ends. We will not be okay when that day comes. TLDR, watch Delicious in Dungeon. You won't regret it. And anime onlys, buckle up because it only gets crazier from here.